Welcome to the Courage Checklist. I'm your host, Jennifer Chambers. Courage. We all want it. What are the things in our lives that we need courage to tackle? How do you find the guts to get the glory? How do you do the things you've always really wanted to do or be? You make the list. You check it off. It sounds simple, but actually doing the hard stuff, the soul-deep stuff, it's not always easy. Find inspiration, ideas, and companions here who also keep trying no matter what. Let's talk about what's on our lists, from giant dream to tiny wish. We share stories of triumph, struggle, joy, and yes, failure, but we keep going together. What's on your list? Today, I'm very excited to introduce an interview with Maya, the podcaster from the Fearlessly Divine podcast. I get to talk to her today about all the different ways she has shaped her life to reflect her values and what she really believes in, and the things that she wants to do. Thanks for joining us today. Hello, everybody. We're so excited today. We have Maya here with us from the Fearlessly Divine podcast. Thanks so much for being here, Maya.
Hi, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so good, and I'm so glad to see you. So to start with, if you could tell our guests a little bit about who you are and where you are and what kinds of things you do.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I do so much. Okay, well, who am I? Where am I? So I am Maya, and I've recently launched a podcast. I am based out of the Bay Area in California, and all the things I'm doing. So I'm a mom. That takes up a big chunk of my day. I have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. Last year, it's been more than a full year now, I quit my 9 to 5 job so that I could be more present with them. And it's been such a blessing. And it's also been really scary at times because there was financial security. and now it's kind of, it's not as stable. It hasn't been, horrible, like I'm not homeless or anything like that. But there's just been moments where it's just like I haven't been in the same place I was. But I think I have to, weigh my values, and really living in my values means that I'm able to give my kids more time. What else am I doing? I think it was such a gift to leave the job that I was at, even though I didn't realize it at the time. And in the financial aspect, sometimes it feels tough. But being able to leave that job has really helped me unlock my creativity. And it's kind of sent me on many journeys, I think, that I maybe would not have gone down before. And so one of them is an entrepreneurial journey where I launched my own business. And the other is this podcasting journey where, like, who would have thought, like, at the beginning of last year, I would have never thought that I would have had my own podcast. And my podcast is still new, but it's really fun for me. I love connecting with the people that I've been connecting with, you yourself included. We would have not met had it not been through that journey. And yeah, I mean, besides that, I'm also a dog mom. My dog is very important to me in my life. And yeah, I think that's who I am. I mean, there's so many more ways I could answer that question too, but
Of course. Well, the thing that struck me and has consistently been so interesting to me about your story is, I mean, imagine the amount of courage it took for you and the guts it took for you to quit your job, just walk away and be like, I have to pick something else for me and for my family and make it work. And you're doing that. And
yeah.
it's incredible. So tell me kind of about what came about and how you got to that decision.
Yeah. Well, so I was working at this job, and I do talk about this on my podcast a bit, where I had been with the same organization for a while, and I had been promoted up and up and up and up. And great things happen when you get promoted. You can make more money, and that's always good. And I was also feeling removed from work that was really making a meaningful impact. and found myself dealing, maybe just to kind of keep it brief, more with like HR type related issues. And it just wasn't really feeling in alignment with me and my values anymore. And actually to the opposite extreme of, there were some decision making happening from people in higher positions where I felt like I didn't have the power to kind of fight back against those decision making processes. And those decisions that were being kind of passed down were completely not in alignment with my values. And so it just became like I just felt like this job was soul sucking. I know that it's kind of extreme to use language like that. The more time and space I've had away from it, I also realized like you don't say words like that on accident. And another gift of stepping away from the job is that it's really set me on this path of healing and my spiritual development. And so I would say coming to that decision of leaving the job was very much a spiritual decision. I just had to have complete 100% faith in God or the universe or whatever term you prefer, and that I was going to be fine. And I'll tell you, I think most people, or I'll say women, because I think it's unfortunate, but I think it happens that as women, we're often the ones that are feeling like we have to choose between the career or the family.
Mhm.
And I could go on that whole thing for a while too, but I think, most women who would be faced in that decision might come at it like in this more logical sort of way where you sit down with your partner and you maybe write down your finances and, think about what is possible, what is not possible. We didn't go through that process. It was just the 100%, the universe is going to catch me. I'm going to take this trust fall. And so it really, I think in many ways I'm still in that trust fall. I'm still in this process of trusting. But as I said, so many good things came from leaving the job that I could have never even imagined. You know what I mean? Like there was no part of me that was thinking Maya's going to start a business, Maya's going to start a podcast, Maya's going to get the opportunity to connect with so many amazing people and have so many amazing conversations. And at the same time, take my kids to the park and take my kids, just being with my kids as at this young age that they are. It has been over a year now, and I do feel like it's time to kind of transition into something else. My older daughter is going to start kindergarten soon. My youngest daughter is 2.5. And so I think she's at an age where it's okay if she goes to daycare and is having some peer interactions. I think it's good for her development at the stage that she's at. And so I think I still want to maintain flexibility in whatever it is that I'm doing so that I can be present with my children. But I'm also, I guess, willing to transition a bit too now.
Mhm. The thing that I love is how your choice was so intentional. It was whether or not you had a net, you were going to leap and
Mm.
felt guided and absolutely certain that you would succeed and find a way to make it happen.
Mhm.
I think that that really strikes a chord for me. We've kind of done something similar in that we've changed. My husband changed his jobs and is following things that are more in alignment with how he feels, and so that
Yeah.
we can do other things together as a family. And I really feel that that as a whole, society is understanding that that choice is possible now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt so much before we made that choice. It sounded like it was crazy. Like, oh my gosh, who are we to, walk away from something that is guaranteed and then do something different? That was really hard. but
Yeah.
but similarly, it's working out wonderfully, and I'm so glad. So tell me, what does your podcast look like? Who's your ideal podcast guest and listener?
Yeah. So I think, okay, so what does my podcast look like? So I'm doing, I think, a combination of me doing some mini episodes of just sharing portions of my journey or, I think tips from my healing path. And I'm also interviewing different people. So far, it's been all women, but I don't think it would be necessarily exclusive to women.
Mhm.
And so I think the ideal audience is just like anybody who this message resonates with. And really the message that I'm trying to get across is that being that it's called fearlessly divine, like when we fearlessly live our lives, sorry, in alignment, then the divine does comes through us, and I think miracles happen. And I'll be honest, it's not, like I'm living every day miraculously. Like I've had my hard moments.
Right.
And so I think the podcast like also talks about like the realities of those hard moments, but also gives some tips and some information like if you are stuck in this hard time, what has worked for other people in getting through that. It's not going to be the same for everybody. It's not going to look the same for everybody, but I think if we start to piece together other people's stories, you can, try one thing, experiment another thing, and eventually you do find something that works for you.
I love that. I do love the show. It is really interesting to have. I like the different mix of episodes that you have between interviews and personal stuff. I like that. For me, that's really great in a podcast so that I can get to know the podcast host, and I appreciate that. I like that a lot. And yours?
And thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I think, it's still new. And so it may evolve. And I think ideas just will randomly come to me. So I know for February, I wanted to focus on like examining love, but maybe not romantic love, like different ways of thinking about love. And for March coming up, I want to focus on women entrepreneurs because March is International Women's Month.
Mhm.
And so I just think it'd be great to highlight different women and their stories, their entrepreneurial journeys, which I have found that the entrepreneurial journey and the spiritual journey are very much aligned. Like, I think you
Mm.
wouldn't think that necessarily when you think about somebody who goes to business school and runs a business if they're like the most spiritual person. But I think, and maybe this is not true for everybody, but I think there's a lot in business that also matches very much the spiritual path.
Well, you have to take the leap of faith, right?
Yeah,
You
totally.
have to do it. And I mean, if you're doing a business, it's like if I create it, will they come? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something that has been a very difficult theme for a lot of people to talk about. Any kind of faith and any kind of spirituality in podcasting is becoming so much more available now. So I like that. I think that's really cool.
I think so. I kind of, and maybe it's like the people I surround myself with kind of thing,
Mhm.
just kind of does seem like we are in this period in our collective history where more people are choosing to explore this path within themselves. And, I very much think it doesn't have to look the same for everybody and, interchangeable terms. But when you also really look at the core of like what people talk about, what people experience, like there are a lot of similarities across the board. And yeah, like I think there's room for all of it, right? We can be accepting of, how you choose to practice your faith.
Well, it's to me the expression many rooms in the same house pretty much says it all.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like to be able to be open to that. It's an interesting concept. It really is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me about your business.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We're kind of talking about spirituality. So my business is in a nutshell, social justice for preschoolers. So my work has always been in early childhood, working with young children and working with families who have young children. And after stepping away from the job, and I think my experience with my children really showed me that I have an interest and a passion for exploring these social justice topics, but approaching these same conversations through that preschooler lens. And so the work that I do is training with programs and with teachers so that we can prepare our young children for a diverse world and to prepare them to be accepting, prepare them to have the language to speak about diversity, and prepare them to seek justice and take action, participate in activism. So yeah, I think it's important. I think it's so it's also, I think, one of those things like you don't know what you don't know. And so I think people are, again, like I said, it's very much mirrors like that spiritual path. Like some people maybe are not ready for it. Some people are well on their way. And so
Mhm.
I think there's a whole spectrum of where I can come in and support. But yeah, I've done
Mm.
trainings with, like I said, programs and teachers and like read alouds as well. Yeah, I'm getting ready to do a read aloud at the local library. Just coming up in a few weeks for, I mentioned Women's Month. So yeah, for
Mhm.
International Women's Day.
Yay! So have you thought about writing a book?
Writing a book, you know, maybe in the future. It's not something now, not yet.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what I would write about yet.
Well, I don't know, just well, from what you're talking about with it sounds like an incredible kids book that you could then use.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have like, I'm looking up at my desk here. I have like this whole like library collection of books that I've been
Uh-huh.
collecting. And I love books. I think books are like such a great tool for
Mhm.
teaching. I
Mhm.
mean, they definitely are. And especially with young children and especially in these topics. I did this short presentation just last week of using books to have difficult conversations with young children. And so, race and racism could be one of those conversations, but it's also things like consent and bullying and the difficult stuff that are on the news. And what's really important to know about children is that even when you don't think they're listening, they are. And
Mhm.
so if something happens in the news, even if it's not in your community, in your town, but you're watching it on the news or you're talking about it with the other adults in your space and your child is there, then they are aware and they might have questions or they might have fears as well. And so it's just really important to be able to have simple, direct, age appropriate conversations with our kids around these topics. One, specifically if they're bringing it to us, like with questions, but two, even if they're not asking, if it's in their environment, we don't want them to get misinformation from their peers. We don't want them to make something up, come to assumptions on their own that could be wrong.
Mhm.
We just want to be able to explain things in a way that's going to make them feel safe and that they can understand what's going on. And so yeah, that's really the nature of the work that I'm doing. And I mentioned working with like educators mostly, but I do want to also extend my work to work with parents directly and do like workshops. I'm thinking of doing like online workshops with parents.
That would be so valuable. And especially if you present them with those tools that they could then use with their own children to help within their own lives.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite book, either like a kid's book or like a spiritual book? What are some of your favorite things to read?
Gosh, so many. So yeah, well, I'm in the middle of a book right now. I love reading. And yeah, like I said, I'm looking up here and I have all these kids' books in front of me, and then I have my own books. I would say Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert is one of my favorites. I'm currently reading, it's called More Than Enough, and it's Elaine Welter Roth's memoir. And what's interesting is I would say that her book really touches on both the social justice aspects and the spirituality aspects. So I'm really enjoying that book. I'm not done with it yet, but I'm enjoying it so far.
Ooh, those are great suggestions. I forgot I was going to ask you about the activism part of your work and what you do. Have you been able to introduce activism to your own kids and take them to things like marches and rallies and things like that?
Yeah, more with my older daughter than my younger daughter. My younger daughter was born during COVID, and with my older daughter, we did stuff, a lot of stuff like that prior to COVID.
Mhm.
And I would say, since COVID, it was harder for me, one, being pregnant at the beginning of COVID and then having a newborn. And then I'll just be flat out honest and say that the transition for me as a mom from one to two kids has been challenging. So I can't say that I've been organized enough to do those types of things. Like getting to the park for me is a win
Oh,
with two kids.
100%. And if you get there with snacks and everything in the stroller, it's like double win. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we do.
I love it that you like to spend so much time with your kids and get to take them to the park and things like that. That must be one of the great happinesses in your life.
Totally. I mean, I'll tell you, I just I feel like I'm one of those people that I knew from very young age. As a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a mom. And I was 26 years old. It was like I had just turned 26. I wasn't in a serious relationship. My birthday's in December, and so after my birthday, I traveled to Europe for the Christmas and New Year holidays. And I remember being in Europe, and I don't know what it like, maybe the fact that I was in Europe is not significant to the story, but it was just very present in my mind. It was just something inside me switched, and I was like, "I'm ready. I'm ready to be a mom. Like, let's do this right now." Except, like I said, I wasn't in any sort of relationship, so it was another few years before I actually became a mom, and I actually struggled in conceiving my first daughter, and that was so painful for me. And I know that people have different stories of and I was so grateful when I finally did get pregnant. It felt like a miracle. And my daughter's name actually is a Basque name that means miracle. And, it just seemed really fitting because, one, the challenges around even conceiving. And then when she was born, she came 5 weeks early. And then there was a whole other set of challenges that happened postpartum. And so she didn't have a name for like the first 3 days of her life. And it was just like, we were literally in survival mode, both her and I. And so it was like, there's other things to focus on right now than your name. But when we did get around to naming her, that was the name that we decided on because of the meaning.
Oh, how meaningful. That's an incredible story. I hear from actually a lot of people who have had trouble with conceiving, and the courage it takes to keep trying is just breathtaking to me.
Yeah.
Just to keep at it.
Yeah.
So what kinds of other challenges in your life have been particularly meaningful for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, like I mentioned earlier, that the entrepreneurial journey for sure
Mhm.
is, I think a whole bunch of like imposter syndrome shows up. Am I good enough? Is this idea good enough? Are people going to like me? I'm crazy for doing this. And being able to walk with that and then set it aside and keep going. And so yeah, I think that's one aspect. What other things? I think even just kind of I mean, I just say like life in general, like
Uh-huh.
there's so many unknowns. And I think I've been in such a transition period of
Mhm.
my life that I really just kind of live by the motto of one day at a time
Mhm.
recently. And it's been a huge change of the personality of like the old Maya. So like the old Maya like had her whole life planned out and just knew exactly who, what, where, when, why, all the things. And when things didn't go according to plan, I was a mess. And so, yeah, letting go has been a life lesson and, part of my spiritual path too, to let go, learning to surrender the outcomes to the universe. And then I think with the story that I shared earlier of leaving the job and not realizing all the great things that were on the other side, I think that is what happens is we're so scared to do whatever the thing is. But once we do get that courage, then there's far greater benefits on the other side that we could have never even dreamed of. And so, yeah, I think I'm living in that right now. Yeah, I think let's check in like another 5 years or so, because I think then I'll be able to really talk about this in more of a way where like I have that full hindsight. But right now I'm on the journey. And I think as I'm sharing this, I think I just have to remind myself of enjoying the journey because I think that's challenging. I think
Mhm.
it'd be
Me too.
challenging for most, but
Me
but
too.
I can just say
Super.
for me, like it's challenging because I think so often we just want to get to the thing, get to the destination, the result, the outcome, like hurry up and this already. But yeah, I think, I'm in this transition phase where I was saying like the schooling of my kids is going to change soon. And so, I'm glad I say like when I wake up in the mornings and we haven't necessarily had a strict routine to stick to, that I cuddle with them in the morning in bed. Oftentimes they end up in my bed.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, I've been really mindful of like enjoying those snuggles and sleeping in maybe a little later than I should. But in my head, I kind of tell myself, like, this isn't going to last forever. This is going to end. And like now, as I mentioned with the transitions, like now I'm starting to see that end point. So I'm really glad that I did enjoy it or am enjoying it. And like I said, there's probably other aspects that I should be enjoying right now and continuing to let go of whatever the end result is.
I fully identify there because you can't recognize what it's like to have been in the zone when you're still in the zone. And there's so many things to parenting that make it challenging and wonderful and frustrating and amazing all at the same time.
Totally.
All at the same time. So to go back to your travel, I wrote that down for myself because I didn't want to let it. First of all, that you were able to travel over there to Europe for the holidays. That's on my list. That's on my checklist for sure. I've been to Europe several times, but I've never been there for the holidays. And especially, I want to go to the Christmas markets. What was your favorite time when you were over there? What did you do that was really fun?
Oh my gosh, my story of being in Europe for Christmas is hilarious. So I was living in New York at the time, and being in New York, it felt a lot easier and quicker to get to Europe.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was living in New York, and a good friend of mine was living in Spain. And so I flew to Spain to see her. And I can't remember the date that I got there, but it was a few days before the holiday. And then she was staying in the south of Spain. We took a 4-hour bus to Madrid so that we could fly from Madrid to Coimbra in Portugal, where we had friends that we had met when we were studying abroad in Brazil years earlier. So then we get to Madrid, and my friend realizes as we're in the airport in Madrid that she forgot her passport. She's an American citizen. She needs a passport to travel. She did have a Spanish ID because she was living in Spain, but she, as you know, an American citizen, she can't travel with that as European citizens can. So it was this like moment of like, what are we going to do? We're here. Like our flight is there, but you can't get on it, but I can. And she just did one of these like, you go, Maya, you go. I got to go back. I'll get a flight in the next couple days or whatever it was. So I fly to Portugal alone. We have friends there. So the friends that we are meeting up with in Portugal are Portuguese. Like this is them spending Christmas with their family. And so I was like the one American in this like whole big family celebration. And what's funny, and so I mentioned that we had been studying abroad in Brazil. So I did know Portuguese. Brazilian Portuguese and Portugal Portuguese are different, but I could get by. And I speak Spanish, so I think that gives me like a little leg up too. Like I can mostly understand what you're saying.
Yeah, same base.
And it was this like people like looking at me with like wide eyes, like, she's American. How on earth does she understand us? Like, how does she speak Portuguese? She's from America. Like this whole thing. But I think like that was one aspect of it. The other aspect was just, it was a family celebration. Like, I think somebody had just gotten engaged. They're all in the living room exchanging gifts. And it was just like this one, like, random person here. And I mean, they were very kind. They were very hospitable, like, you know, no complaints. But there's just like, it's just like this bizarre story of my life. And, you know,
Funny.
I'm happy to share it.
Oh, I love it.
The other thing is in Portuguese cuisine, and especially for the holidays, it's so meat heavy, meats and fish. And I think by the end of, you know, the Christmas holiday, I remember being in like a mall and like, you know, those little like food courts. And I was just like, my stomach, all I wanted was a salad. I'm like, I need greens. I need greens, like too much meat, too much. I'm not a vegetarian or vegan or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but my body needed greens.
That's wonderful.
I was such a great time. And then my girlfriend eventually did make it, I think, like the day after Christmas. So I was just like a couple days of like awkwardness.
Yeah, but I bet that's a really good thing that you remember every holiday. I always like to close by asking people what their latest moment of joy was and to kind of describe that a little bit. And then we'll let listeners know how to get a hold of you.
So, have you ever heard of people who do potty training with their kids and just like have them run around naked in the house? So we're in that right now. And on top of just my toddler running around naked, she likes to climb on my bed, and I'm gonna credit my sister. Thank you, sister, for teaching her this. They jump on the bed like 1, 2, and then on the bed. And so she was doing that on my bed today, and she's naked. And so I'm like, of course I have to take a little video. And she's 2.5. So she counts and she goes, 1, 2, 4. And then she skips over 3. So it's so cute to me and so funny. And I think that was my most recent moment of joy.
Oh, I love that. Oh, and that's something that you'll also like hold on to and remember when she gets big.
Yeah, and tease her about.
So how can listeners get a hold of you?
You can listen to the Fearlessly Divine podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I think are like the two biggest, but I think I'm also on like Google and Amazon. I'm also on some of the other platforms, but you can search for Fearlessly Divine. And if you want to connect with me, feel free to connect with me at OhMayaG on Instagram. It's at OhMayaGee. Yeah, and I think that's where I mostly hang out. If anybody is interested in anti-bias consulting work, I also do have a website. It's MayaGutierrezConsulting.com. And as I mentioned, I don't have the parenting workshops up yet, but that is something that I do plan to work on.
Oh, absolutely. I will make sure that I publicize that whenever you do. And I'll make sure that I have all of your ways to contact you will be in the bio on the website. Thank you so much for coming today. This is awesome. I just love talking to you.
Yes, thank you. It's been so nice to reconnect with you as well.
I so appreciate the fact that you just keep going. That's my strategy too. You just have to act as if is what I always kind of go by.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
And then hopefully, leap and the net will appear. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, this has been awesome. Have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
To close out this week, I always like to tell you guys about the wonderful books that I'm reading and share those. So this week I found a really great series on my Kindle Unlimited. Not an ad, just something that I really like. It's a series by Ellery Adams called The Secret Book and Scone Society. And it's a really, really fun little series about a woman who owns a bookstore in South Carolina. I mean, books about bookstores are the best, but it's a mystery series. I definitely recommend it. I've ripped through like the first 4 books in the series this whole week. So it's fun, easy to read, and just a delight. It makes you feel like you're there. The second book I have recommend this week is called Norwich, One Tiny Vermont Town's Secret to Happiness and Excellence by Karen Krause. I just started reading this. It's a nonfiction book, inspiring and thought-provoking about how these people in this town in Vermont are happy. So I thought that would be interesting to find out. And my third book, true to form, is a true crime book. It's called I Know Who You Are, How an Amateur DNA Sleuth Unmasked the Golden State Killer and Changed Crime Fighting Forever by Barbara Ray Venter. I haven't started that one yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I wanted to invite you guys this week. I would love to hear your favorite books or the books that you're reading. So please leave a voicemail on the show's website. And as always, the best way to support the show is to follow it and to share it with a friend. You could also leave a review if you're so inclined, or a rating. I would really appreciate it. And I can't wait to talk to you guys next week about some other fun stuff and some great books. Have a great week, and thanks for listening.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. sometimes it's all too much. Lost inside the black. Our stories are brilliant.